Jace, thank you for coming in.
Mate.
Now, quick intro, Jace, just so people understand just quickly who you are. I spoke to you recently about a bit of a series I'm doing at the moment, the war on men, the war on women, the war on children, the war on family.
Yeah.
And today I've asked you to be here because we're talking about the war on marriage.
Yep.
And I'm just going to say one little piece of your background that kind of let you explain to the audience who you are and what you do. But I know that you were Councillor of the Year last year. And so having coffee with you for 15 minutes, I'm like, man, this guy knows so much more about relationships than I can articulate. So, man, thank you for being here.
Absolute pleasure.
Now, before we go into it, we're obviously going to talk about all the things that we see against the marriage. Now, you primarily work in helping people's marriages be healthy. Man, for the listeners, what's the pinnacle when a marriage is done well? Like, what can a marriage actually be?
Yeah, well, when you clearly articulate marriage, what you're talking about is a covenant, right?
Yep.
And what marks a covenant is love. And the love that we believe in is love that has a submission to one another, a primary sort of river of servanthood that makes the relationship continue to feel fulfilling, right? And so the way I describe it is like if I'm underneath my wife like that and she's underneath me and we're serving one another in love, then our needs are being met and we're not vacuuming things from each other, actually adding blessing to each other. And so a lot of relationships are so needy because there's so much deficit in their life that they can't have a thriving marriage because they're not submitted to one another in love and putting that love, that servanthood as the number one thing that keeps their marriage thriving.
And how many marriages, well, as a whole, do you think we're achieving that? Like, no one's teaching this, right? I'm married, Dan's married, you're married. I should also say, guys, I know he looks young, but he is married, 3 boys now, right?
3 boys,
Three boys, so raising men, which is amazing. And so how many marriages out there are you actually looking at them and seeing not just necessarily people you come through your doors, right? But you serve in your community, you're part of a local church, you're giving to those around you, you're in and amongst lots of friends, you see people who are married and not talking about the people who come to you, but are you seeing healthy marriages or generally like, oh, this could be so much better?
I think the intention when people get together is, I love this person and I have the feelings of love and there's the spark and there's all that sort of stuff, but you're still seeking a partner. You're still seeking someone to make something that's missing in you feel whole again. And so times that by 10 years, kids, business that you want to run, or you're working at a high level, your career's gone well and all those sorts of things, and you've probably got a house and you've got cars on finance and all the stuff happening.
Right.
Once that all gets laid on there, then the feelings that would normally, let's say, merit love and service towards your spouse actually go to, what can I get out of this? And so what I'm seeing on repeat is a lot of marriages sort of come to me or having conversations with people about it, and there's this reoccurring value system that I'm not getting what I need in my marriage anymore, or this isn't serving me in the best way possible anymore. And so that's why people start to sort of outsource pleasure or outsource fun and activities, or let's just say, not to say anything too much, but like dads might go play golf for like hours and hours and hours.
Hang on. I feel very attacked right now, right? No, all good. Before we go into the outsourcing, right, and people going outside their marriage, which is the extreme level, it probably starts with small steps. The reason I'm interested in this, one, I'm married, so I always want my marriage to be better and better and better. I just believe you can always build on it. But the other thing is, and it's not a conspiracy, but I've got an acute eye and ear to it. I feel like it's attacked. And so we're going to get into some of the issues that you see regularly that pop up, but I think they're actually just the result of an external attack.
Of course.
So we'll talk about, say, like finances would be one, the behavior issues, and even just how men aren't celebrated in their roles.
Sure.
And even how women aren't celebrated in their traditional role. It's kind of flipped now and they're told to go out and have a career. So I see these things, you've touched on it briefly with me before when we've had a little pre-discussion. What are the biggest areas you see that are probably the result of external forces, but where does a marriage break down?
It breaks down when you stop caring about the needs of your spouse. And normally that happens because your needs aren't being met, right?
Okay.
And
You
so
kind of throw your hands in the air type, you give up.
So there's an instantaneous response to your needs not being met, which is I'm not now meeting needs and being, let's say, more aware of them. Then offense, resentment gets in, those bitter feelings, those bitter roots get in, and then very slowly, it can actually happen fast, but from the starting point, it slowly creeps until you just sort of go up and then you hit the bell curve and it starts going down really, really fast. So,
one of the biggest areas that it's funny, I feel like I'm a good communicator, right, in life. I feel like I'm a bad communicator in my marriage. Let's talk a little bit about men and their ability or lack of ability maybe to communicate. I'm sure women play their part, right, but I'm not going to speak on behalf of women or my wife especially. But when it comes to communication, I feel like there's always a breakdown in communication.
Yep.
You're saying one thing or they're saying one thing. You're hearing different things. Before we even get to the back end of this conversation, we're going to talk about the spiritual side of things, right? Just in the very basic levels, communication must play a massive part, right?
Yeah, we say that if you're having communication problems, you're having marriage problems.
Okay.
Communication is not just talking. That's one of the major issues. So many couples have come to us after seeing counsellors because we have a specific coaching program, and they say that our counsellor just told us to go home and communicate more. And so what they did was they communicated more about the stuff that doesn't work in the manner that doesn't work. And so communication is the giving and receiving of information. The result of that information is presence. How did we land back together present with each other, right? And so what a lot of people or couples I see do, they share their thought, they share their opinion, they share their hurt, whatever it is, but they don't think about how's this information going to land to build reconciliation. It's just, I want to be heard. And that's the problem because there's no intent or further intent behind the giving of the information.
You've, I think last time we chatted, you said, I don't know how many hundreds of couples that you've sort of interacted with or spoken to. Just so people, as well as they're watching this and they might be thinking immediately, I would say most men immediately are going to be like, my marriage could be better. Because I just think we all are like that. We've all got great wives and a lot of us are in local churches and we're busy and we've got families. But I think the desire is, I feel like we can always do better, right? What's just a little bit of hope before we get really into the weeds of it? What sort of success rate do you see with people who come and actually get some counselling and kind of say, hey, we're not communicating well. We're saying two different languages almost in the house. What sort of success rate do you see with people?
It's actually crazy that you're asking this because 2 days ago I actually did the maths. So we've worked with a few over 300 people. And I did the maths with ChatGPT, of course, on 300 couples, right? And what the percentage would be actually if the 4 couples that we haven't seen, let's just say, reconcile and keep journeying with each other, what the percentage would be. And it's sitting at 98.7%, our success rate, on restoring couples through our process, but communication's 100% in there. We major on that. We give them a bit of a masterclass, a life skill or life skills to take home so they keep replicating and keep implementing so they get better and better and better, not worse and worse and worse. A lot of the challenges we see with, like, let's say general talk style counseling is that they'll get a tool and a skill, but they fall off afterwards because there's not that higher level of accountability. And so the success rate is due to just having a closer knit journey with each other for a longer period of time and helping them refine that process so that when they're done, they actually have it locked down.
Question for husbands and wives watching. Is there a particular side you see that tends to be the reason behind the marriage breaking down right now? In today's society, which we're going to dive into the rates in which porn are being consumed by men, the rates in which men are suicidal.
Yeah.
And then I'm not even jumping to say what the war against women is right now, but who do you see when, out of all the couples you see, are you like, all right, man, the men suck right now? Or is it like, oh, these women are really misled? Where's it land so far?
Men just don't have the skill sets they need to have the conversations that they need to be having.
Right.
All the information's in there. all the pain, all the want, all the desire, all the longing. It's the ability to translate that information properly and deliver it to their wife.
What about a little role play? A little example of what's some of the most, like you must see somewhere you're like, guys, this is very simple.
Yeah.
Like he is saying this, Steve is saying this.
Yep.
And Jessica is saying this. I actually know Steve and Jessica if they watch this. Not that couple. I was trying to think of random names. But there must be some really basic stuff. Is communication the number one?
To them.
Right.
To every couple, it's always number one.
Okay.
We can't figure out how to communicate and how to get understanding. But a lot of the time there is deeper roots to that as well.
What's some of the other things you mentioned? I think money would have to come into it, right? Money would be a big one. That would also tie into communication, right? But money would be a big pressure, especially today.
100%. Money itself is the pressure, but the conflict, the context in which the conflict happens is in relation to what did we spend the money on?
Right.
That's where the fight lives. Yeah, so it's not necessarily we don't have enough or we got too much or whatever the case may be, or money as an entity, but it's where did that money go? The spending of it is where the big conflict lives.
You got any what's some of the more detailed stories, or have you got any sort of like horror stories where something was so completely wrong and your guys were able to mend it?
So we had this couple come to us, and I obviously want to be as respectful as I can, but in a really bad way. Councillor had already said, there's no way you guys are going to survive.
Right.
And we do a little preliminary form, can you afford our service, et cetera, and they were like, no, we cannot. And so I was like, look, I can't work miracles. I can in other areas, right? But this particularly, I can't work a miracle. It's either you're in or you're out, and I need both of you there. Anyway, turns out there was millions on the line with their conversations and with their life. There had been...
Oh, you're talking from a point if they were to split, the downfall would be quite a large estate.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Business...
Surely your course doesn't cost $1 million.
Not even close.
Okay, right. Keep going.
Yeah, not even close. And so I say, look, we want to work with you. We reckon we can do something spectacular.
Right.
Okay? And they were really just like, we don't have any other choice. We want to be together, but there's a lot going on. Okay. Anyway, we ended up pausing their process because of physical altercations, one third of the way through. And I was like, wow, this context would have been nice on our preliminary call just to see that this is where you were at.
Wow.
So we put pause, authorities got involved, and I was like, I'm committed to the process. When you're ready to come back and this is sort of sorted out, let's go. And so they were like, let's go. This has been the worst part of our relationship so far, but we know that yous have got what it takes to actually help us. We finished the program. They're a million miles from where they were in a positive sense. I get a message recently, and she commented on a post that we had, and I said, "How you guys going?" She goes, "You wouldn't believe it." Her boyfriend spontaneously out of nowhere gets on one knee, right, proposes, and they're getting married in around about 6 months. And when you saw the state of their relationship, I was like, Naomi, like my wife, I was like, come and read this, And so obviously they were doing well when they finished, but to have that next level of like complete commitment was...
Yeah, so they weren't married. They came to you, obviously a long, messy relationship, financial ties, everything going on.
Huge.
And so, and they had a lot of issues, it sounds like. And on the backside, to be getting married, which is amazing. What do you see in the realms of what I think is an attack on, say, the nuclear family and the roles of men and women in the household? What are some of the major things that you see coming in, being the external force that's bringing up these issues?
I think culture teaches parents to think that the most important thing in their life is their career, is the money, is the status, is the dreams and the goals and the vision, when actually each other are the greatest reward. And then the reward that comes from that is raising children and seeing them thrive and seeing them get appropriated into culture and in essence do something great that you could never do. And so we're so externally focused, right, which is that multiplicity instead of making our life simple and saying, I'm married, what a reward. what a blessing.
Yeah.
And I now have kids that my love has defined, and I get to show them what real love is because of the commitment I have. And so to answer clearly, I think parents are way too focused with what's happening outside the doors of their home instead of what's happening inside.
How do you work around that because to be honest, people will be watching, especially with the cost of living, right? And not even just in this country, in countries all over the world. We've got friends in the States, New Zealand, Europe, people that we know. Cost of living, for some reason, worldwide is an issue, which means that both parents generally have to work, which means that who's raising the kids. This is where I get into my, not so much conspiratorial thing, but everything is going against being able to just be a healthy mum and dad, raise a family, look after your kids. So do you spend much time kind of like opening people's eyes to the beauty of like, hey man, as a dad, you are called to provide, protect, lead this household, like make big decisive decisions. And then to the wife, it's kind of like, hey, you're called to like love your husband, support him, have input, yes, raise your children. You don't need to go. If you want to go have a career, fine. But I feel like so much of what is being pushed on women these days is actually go get a career. And straight away that is causing a divide in the house because I can imagine there'd be men who are going to feel weird if they're earning less than their wife. Like there would be men going through that and they would feel a bit inferior. I don't know how I feel about that, but I know that would be a thing. Men would feel like, oh, my wife's the main breadwinner and whatever, so be it. But is there a bit of coaching that you kind of put into like, it's like you've been married 15 years, but you don't even really know your roles.
Yep.
Does that happen a bit?
100%. And we do it. A part of our process is a gender role. Like look at the tradition of it, but you have the power to create the culture that you want inside your home. And a culture is just a living charter of behaviors that have been implemented, right? And so our foundational process is figuring out that culture with a couple because they get together a lot. And I'm saying a lot of couples get together on dating apps, right? Or like on Tinder or something, and then they just meet up and then it goes from there. And when you start from there, it's obviously just attraction based and things like that. And you have to get to know them. But in relation to what we were talking about, those traditional gender roles obviously have been splintered as hard as they possibly can with culture. And so what we do is get the couple to create the culture that they ultimately want and align themselves with so that when another culture, maybe it's a family member or a cousin or a friendship group or whatever, or a business partner, come to question the culture and come to shake it, they both in unity can say, that's not what we do here. That's not who we are. This is what we do. Good. Right? And Naomi and I established that when we were dating. What is our actual culture of our relationship? And there's things that we have now a decade on, which is actually 13 years, that are still there, right? That we've lived our whole marriage on account of, because for us, it was the most powerful thing we could align on.
Is that kind of like establishing boundaries? Is that what you mean? Like some people would look at it like boundaries.
Yeah, in essence.
It's almost like, and I'm just even thinking, I was like, man, that would even be so effective for my wife and I to be like, hey, just so we know, because it's unspoken. Like it's unspoken.
Yeah, and then when you question it.
Yeah, but if it is spoken and you're like, hey, this is what we agree on, these are our values, anyone trying to come in from the outside and sow seeds of division, exactly. Yeah. It's your ride or die type. But okay, that's a really good advice for people to actually have that conversation with your wife. And it's great.
Yeah, and the best picture I can give is like, say you put a young person on a front lawn, right? Playing with a ball, playing with trucks, cars, frisbee, whatever. You've got the sidewalk where they can get clipped by a postie or a bike going by. Then they kick the ball further out into the road, which is further away from the unit. They get hit by a car, all right? There's so much danger without that living charter of behaviors or boundaries, as you said. Yeah. All you've got to do is put a front fence, and that child lives in complete safety. The boundary doesn't hinder the ability to play. It doesn't hinder the ability to throw the frisbee or to kick the ball or to do anything at all. All it says is everything out there is dangerous. Everything in here is safe. So thrive. And that's the transformative power of having the right culture when it comes to your marriage, that not only you, but then your kids actually get to live inside of. Hey guys, my name's Jason. If you want to improve your marriage, when you finish this video, why don't you go down and click the link in the description.
That leads me into let's talk about the consumption of pornography. Because the first thing that came to mind would be, man, that fence is like, hey, we don't consume pornography, right? Do you have a lot of couples that I was speaking to a friend recently. I won't say who it is, but I was just speaking to a friend recently, and he'd only recently stopped watching pornography. He's not a Christian or anything, and not that means anything these days as well. But he had just said to me, "Oh, I just stopped because my wife, like his new wife, kind of said, 'What do you mean you watch porn?'" And he was like, "Well, everyone watches. What do you mean? What do I mean? Like that's who cares? Yeah. Everyone does it. I love you doesn't mean anything. It's just like if you're not around." And she was like, "Whoa, no, this is not okay." And she went down the route of like, "Hey, you're funding trafficking, abusive minors, all this stuff." He'd never thought it. And I was like, well, clearly you don't watch my show, but thank you.
Yeah.
But I was like, straight away, I was like, man, it's crazy to think that most men, especially say outside church, because we talk about it quite a bit in church, but outside of that, don't realise, and they just do it. How dangerous is porn to a married couple?
I'm just going to put it in a positive light. Say as a married couple, you agree that we love watching it because it gets us both in the mood.
Right.
And so that's your culture. There's a clear statistic that if you watch pornography as a married couple, even positively, the national Western world average of 49.8% of divorce, 4 X's instantly.
Wow.
Right? So you nearly have a 200% likelihood.
So you have zero. It's going to be an issue.
You're in the minus instantly.
Okay.
That you'll create something in your relationship that will merit your separation, and it could be the performance isn't there anymore. The insecurities just are so large that you no longer feel safe. There's no longer vulnerability. It's performance driven. It's not intimacy. It's not connection. It just gets in many senses twisted, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with twisting any type of culture when it's in its rightful state, let's say a marriage without pornography, is that everything that twists has to snap back. And with the snapping back is where the damage happens.
Okay.
And so at some point that snapping back will take place.
What I don't know if this is true. I'm just guessing on how men are wired and how women are wired.
Sure.
I feel like a man could watch pornography up until the day he dies and have no issue. And he could keep this thing running. Yeah, we watch porn together with the wife, right? And this is what we do. It's amazing. We do it together. Or even people who go out and swing, or that stuff like that with couples. Yeah. I think the makeup of the female, at some point, she's going to be like, I'm not into this anymore, because they're wired differently. Would that be the process, you reckon?
9 times out of 10, they're already not.
Wow.
To keep the, let's say, harmony of the relationship, there is a submission that takes place, because what daddy wants, daddy gets.
Okay.
Right? Yep. And I've actually asked couples before, have you been honest with how uncomfortable you are, even when they were smiling on screen? Have you been honest with how uncomfortable you are with him watching pornography? Oh, no, not really. I said, so do you feel really secure when he's watching some really good-looking woman on the screen, and then he comes to a really tired, disheveled mum of 3? Right. Do you feel great? No. So it's always there.
Yeah, okay.
It's always there. And it's just compounding interest the whole time. And not only that, it's compounding interest in the man as well. Because if your wife becomes the evolution, the transformational self that she is, which is I'm no longer the young girl who used to go out and party with you and drink and have fun and do all-nighters and do all that sort of stuff. Now I can't get past 8 p.m. because I'm absolutely knackered and I've got no libido and all that sort of stuff. If the man's just chowing pornography, eventually he's going to go, I'm not into this anymore. Right. And so there's so many roadblocks that you can run into.
Pretty alarming too, the age in which people are consuming it now. I feel like, man, how old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like even my generation, so I'm 39, it was around, but it just was like, just wasn't as accessible. I feel like there was it was a little bit harder to get your hands on it. I was always, my dad was like an ex-detective too. So I just never went down that path because I was so paranoid about ever getting caught with something like that. So that saved me, which was good. But then also I just think in the age that we grew up, it just wasn't as readily available in the fingertips, in your phone, ready to go.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, now, man, even I feel for my kids who, I've got a 13-year-old girl, I've got a boy who's 3 and then another child, 8 in the middle. I worry about it's so hard to block them from anything because, and you talk about culture, what's accepted just on TV now, what's rated G now used to be PG.
Yeah. What's
rated PG now used to be like MA. And so it's just the standards have dropped in society so much.
Yeah, of course.
Are you feeling that those overarching things on the outside affect the marriage?
Definitely. I think where it causes a massive level of strain is how exposed the young kids are to it. Yeah, it's such a intense environment that all families are having to live through. I'm reminded of this story of a place I used to work, and this mum said they were watching the Buzz Lightyear movie, and at the end of it, there's a same-sex wedding at the end.
Yeah.
And she said she looked at her kids and their brains just glitched, as in like, wait a second, that's not normal. And she said she was putting out that fire for like 3 months afterwards.
Yeah.
They were trying to process it all. Why did that actually happen? And her doing it as tastefully and as lovingly as she could, it took a long time to just be like, this is where we've landed, right? And so that is happening all the time, and it's happening obviously more prevalently, especially with streaming, services and things like that families are using really regularly. So, yeah, it creates a lot of challenges.
Question for the audience is, not all men, predominantly men, I think like 82% men of who watch this channel. Just a direct challenge, my pastor often is quite challenging in the way that he'll be like, whatever the problem is, men, you can change.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of like, it's always like, yeah, but. He's like, no, not but. Hey, like, you're built to change. You're built to lead. You're built to overcome. You do it. And do you feel like that I know you operate in the secular space, but you've obviously got a deep faith and everything you do is led by your convictions to Christ, and I get all that. Do you see a lot of it, you're like, man, if men could just lead, step up, like step into that role, is that a bit of a challenge that you feel like for men to grow in that area?
Yeah. I think the hardest thing I've ever had to do is tell a wife that you have to take the power position and actually push so hard in the realm of conviction and values and put an ultimatum in front of the man that won't actually budge. Yeah. I just said this to someone this week. Family's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And she's like, I need help. And I was like, all right, let's jump on a quick call. And she sort of shared their details, story, everything like that. And I said, it's time to put your foot down as hard as you possibly can.
Right.
And I don't advocate separation one iota, not one bit. The outcome of separation as opposed to a relationship working and actually making it work is far exceedingly better. But men can change every single time.
Yeah.
For you to say, I can't do that, right, as far as I'm concerned, is a abdication of authority that God has given you as a man to lead, to change culture, to shift ideas, and not only to do that, but to transform your own mind, to think differently so that you act differently. Like, you're the full sum of your beliefs. The Bible even says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so if you can't think, I can't change, or I can't do this, or this is not going to work, then it's actually not going to. But if you dig in, like literally stick your heels into the ground, like a scrum, just like all your toes, and just send it, you'll actually see change, but you have to be willing. And 9 times out of 10, I always say this, a marriage is only as healthy as the people in it. Marriage doesn't make you happy, you make your marriage happy.
Yeah.
And so if we've got men on here that have an unhappy marriage and it's not healthy, it's because of them. and what they can do to transform and change and actually bring life and a new culture and a new, let's say, lease or mindset towards what's possible in their marriage.
And on the flip side, because there would be people watching or thinking, oh, you just don't know my wife, right? It's like there's that out there.
Yeah.
And there'll be women saying, you don't know my husband, he's never going to change. Do you still see that? Like, have you seen, just based off the couples you've worked with, have you been able to see in every instance that the man has changed and has stepped up, there's been success?
Every time.
Yeah.
Like, every time. Regardless
of the role the female's playing, the wife's playing, if he leads and steps up, and when I'm saying lead, guys, like hear me out. I'm not saying he's like the dictator. I just mean if he leads by example, right? The idea of going first is like a position of actually protection.
Yeah.
Not I'm first, and it's a position of vulnerability. Like I'm going to put myself out there so you guys are okay. Every time the man does that.
Every time.
Every time the man does that.
Every time.
Change happens in the marriage.
Yep. And it's because the wife feels safe again.
Yeah. So just an example, and the reason I'm just going to labour on a second is that every time the male says, I'm done with pornography, the marriage will change.
Yeah.
Every time he says, I'm going to stop gambling, the marriage will change.
Every time.
Every time he says, I'm going to stop drinking in excess or being selfish or playing too much golf or gaming too much or whatever it is, or obsessing online and scrolling, every time he makes a change, the marriage improves.
Yep. It's down to the actionables that we do in the process we do, if the husband goes on them, the actionables and the tools and the conversations that they're supposed to be having and leads that, the percentage of them seeing dramatic change just goes up by a mile.
I want to flip this a little bit, almost like reverse engineer it. What makes an unhappy wife?
A wife that's not seen. She feels like the role she plays, the work she does, the service that she brings, Bible calls them a helpmate, the amount of help she brings to shape, let's say, a home environment, a relationship, all the bids of connection, all the times that she wants to have an emotional connection and the husband just stands there almost looking into outer space, all those moments, feeling not seen, that's what makes an unhealthy wife, or an unhappy wife, I should say.
What makes an unhappy husband?
Not being loved, appreciated, and respect for his blood, sweat, and tears, and verbally being affirmed of that and noticed for it.
What damage does it have on a young kid when mum and dad don't get along?
Kids don't have the ability to rationalize why they're having a fight. What they say is, what did I do? Because they only have the idea of rationalizing self. What did I do to make this happen? So every time you're fighting a divorce, anything to do with your relationship that's done out in the open, let's say that's not healthy, you can have healthy conflict in front of kids, that's good. That's not healthy. Your child would go, what did I do to make this happen? And that's why if you're living in a toxic environment for a long period of time, surprise, surprise, parents, you actually got your kid in therapy, you've got suicidal tendencies, you've got cutting, you've got addictions, you've got like an aloofness, all those sorts of things happening in your young person. And it's actually, sorry, but it's because of you. It's not actually because of them. They don't have the ability to rationalize everything that's happening in the room or in the culture. That's your job. So that's what happens to young people.
What are the major, I just want to stick to men for a second. When a man, because it's obviously, we can fix that by saying, okay, men, just make a note to yourself, start to train it. I just did it again the other day to my wife, first time in, it's the easiest thing you can say that will make them feel seen and heard and valued. Yeah. And it was like, hey, how can I pray for you today? You should ask your wife that every day.
Come on.
I'm
under conviction right now.
I went a little bit stale on it for a while, and I apologise for that. But those words, it's almost like when a kid is in trouble and they don't want to say sorry. There's this like tension between where you're like, just say sorry, and the more you say it and it kind of shuts down, but then when they do it, there's this release, right?
Yeah.
There's something in saying to your wife, and even just like I pray for my wife a lot, but to be honest, if she's just asleep, I'll pray for her and stuff. Because I'm just like, oh, I might just pray for her. But there's something in that when you, in the spiritual realm,
Yep.
there's something in it when you just turn around and you say, hey, how can I pray for you today? Then she gives you the answer. You actually go do it. And then the next day, I prayed for that yesterday. How are you feeling on that? Or how can I pray for you today? The first thing that happened, she told me, then she turned around and said, how can I pray for you today?
So
I was like, I don't know. I've never really been asked that. What do you see around some basic tips for men?
first one, what's a need that you have this week that I could meet? Yep. Is there anything that I can do that would make you feel seen? And the last one could be, I want to practically lift a burden that you might have. How can I do that? And so it means you're hitting a practical side of your relationship and an emotional side of your relationship. That will instantly merit a deeper connection for the most part. Obviously, I can't speak to all different layers that are happening, but that'll instantly cause a closer reconciliation on a physical and an emotional level.
Now, do men need to prepare that they might not like the answer?
100%.
And how to respond to that?
So, great point. If you get, hey, you could be more attentive to like being romantic, the worst thing the husband can do is go, oh, I am romantic, and get all sour because what they feel like is they're being accused of not being romantic.
Yeah.
What it is it's a bit of connection. It's not a word of condemnation, or it's not a word of accusation.
Yeah.
So not mixing up the two. Don't hear what's not being said. Yeah. If you're being requested to meet a need, then go, I would actually love to do that. I'll do that this week.
Yeah.
Done. Transaction over. Your wife feels like, wow, that's so nice. And you feel like, shoot, I don't have to guess this week.
Yeah. What if you walk up to your wife and you say, hey, I want to be better. I can feel things aren't great right now. I want to be better. What could I do? And she turns around and says, well, lose weight. Like, show me you care. Like, what if it's something that could be like a sore spot, right?
Yeah.
Or if she said, or maybe it's like as light as saying, stop playing golf. And you're kind of like, and I'll put myself in the position where my wife wouldn't say that, but I'll be like,
maybe.
Well, maybe if it's the one, I've never asked, right? But if the man's like, well, that's the one thing I have for myself and blah, blah, blah. This is where I come back to this thing where my pastor would be like, hey, man, if that's what they want, change.
Yeah.
Like if that's what they're saying, if that's actually what they want. So is there this like, I know we're getting to a little bit of like, self-sacrificial, laying your life down type
and then it would
stuff.
be like, oh, you're just under the thumb.
Yeah, but we've got to not care what people, if you want a healthy marriage.
That's right.
This is where the boundaries come into
That's right.
you're not concerned with what your mates are saying about it.
Because then you ask your mates, oh, how's your marriage going?
Absolutely.
Are you giving me advice on a great marriage, or are you giving me advice on a crappy one too?
That's right. Yeah, so how do men best prepare for like, at the end of the day, if you're going to ask your wife, how can you be better?
Yeah.
Or if there's something, because is there something I can do for you this week is a different conversation, because it might be like, yeah, could you just maybe like start helping with putting our kids to bed? Because you just come home, lie down. I'm just repeating conversations in my head that we had.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, Brodie, could you pray for the kids tonight? I do it every night. I'm like, oh, you've just waited till I lay down. Okay. And then I'm like, oh, come on, man. She's asking you to pray for your kids. It's very simple to walk it, right? But it's it's that stuff, right? That men need to be like, absolutely. They're not asking you to do anything bad. Like, step up. But what if it's heavy? What if it's like, hey, I want you just to drastically change, right?
Yeah, let's talk into the lose weight one. It's actually a funny story. We're saying this, the conversation's been perfect. A couple of weeks ago, I just had this funny question asked Amy. I'm like, out of 10, like, what am I? Am I a 10 or am I like,
like a 6?
Yeah, like in relation to culture though. I'm not just saying you, because I don't want you to give me an answer that's just like, based on you. She goes, to a lot of people, you'd be a 10. And I'm like, I nearly fell into the bath that I was bathing my baby in, I was like, no way, are you serious? Because I don't think that.
Right.
And so she's like, yeah. And then I said, oh, but what about what's going on here? She goes, you're about an 8, so you actually need to like do something about it.
8's a good score though.
8's
a good score.
Cheers. Praise the Lord.
You got a loving wife You got a loving wife who's playing games, but
Right. But, I was
the 8
like,
hurt.
it did. I was like, I'm actually carrying 10 kilos more than I want to be.
Right.
And that stings me.
Okay.
And so that solution's already there, right? It's already happening. And for a husband that's overweight and their wife says that, it's not an attack. It's her inviting you to be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be.
Yeah.
Because think about it this way. You take off your clothes now and you want to have some frisky time and enjoy it, and you want your wife to be attracted to you, that's not happening right now.
Yeah.
Do you actually want your wife to be like, dang?
Yeah.
And do you want to have the sex life that you actually want to have in the future? Well, then the answer is 100% yes for most men.
Yeah.
So do something about what's going to work for your wife to get her in a place where she actually wants to be with you.
Present the best version of yourself.
Yeah. Sort of like what Jordan Peterson said. Someone asked him, how do I get girls? And he basically just said, be the person that girls want to get.
Yeah.
Which is simple. Be the husband that your wife wants to have all the time.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Did we touch much on what were the 4 main pillars that you mentioned at the
So
start?
we've got communication,
Yep.
sex, love, intimacy, finance, the
Yep.
entity of finance, and then just culture in general. How does that impact? We talked a bit about pornography already.
With finances, have you seen practically where marriages are breaking down because just 2 parents are working and they're just drifting apart, kind of like 2 ships in the night? Does that happen a bit?
Yeah, that's very, very common. And what we do in the process is just alignment. What do you both really want? Where do you both think you're heading as a couple? And creating the context in which those 2 people can have conversations that are really on purpose and constructive so that they can realize, oh, we're actually on more of the same page than we thought. It's just our thoughts and our emotions are lying to us because the truth that it's presenting is actually not the truth. And so we are just aligning those 2 things. And when it comes to finance and making money and things like that, they're working most of the time towards the same goal. And so what we do is go, okay, you're having frustrating conversations about finances. You're having frustrating conversations about life. We're going to help you to have non-conflictual emotional conversations that stabilize you so that when you're talking about these conflictual areas, you're in a way better place to align and actually connect with each other. Because if you're up here talking about the conflictual stuff, it's never going to land well.
When we see men and women, I know that they do this a bit in the church context, they'll do like pre-marriage courses and stuff like that. And we never did that because we got together and I wasn't even in church. And there's a lot of ground we missed. When you get together, or if they haven't done it yet, anyone watching, we talked a little bit about setting those boundaries, but they might be about certain values and stuff. What about when you've got 2 people who have a different faith, or one believes and one doesn't? Or maybe you've just got different political views completely, or where's the breakdown here? Because ultimately, if you're 2 become 1, you kind of got to get on the same page, right? This is going to be confusing to kids watching. This is just going to have tension and conflict. I've got a couple I know, and one of them used to watch a lot of Nick Winters. I don't know if you know, he's just this wild right-wing conservative guy, but not wild, he was a shunned voice for a while, oppressed, and now all of a sudden it's become very mainstream. But there's some extreme views around it.
Yeah.
And then, but I just know that the husband was loving him, watching him, and he had to the wife was the opposite, and there was a little bit of breakdown. Yeah. But what happens when husbands and wives politically don't align? Maybe in their faith they don't align, like major ideologies.
Yeah, it all comes down to a root system of values. At the end of the day, I worked with a couple once. He was an atheist and she was brought up Catholic. Wanted to have the family in church, take the kids there, morals. A lot of people say the Christian faith is taught great morals, et cetera, principles. Yeah. And they were so unaligned that they had massive conflict over whether the kids specifically would be in church or not.
Right.
And not church for zealous church sake, but more just for the value sets that they were trying to implement in the kids. And so I would say that because you're the full sum of your beliefs, the way you believe is the way you behave. If you don't align your beliefs, you don't align the values that actually drive you, unfortunately, you're going to head in a different direction.
Yeah.
And at some point, you will have major conflict over that. And because the deepest part of you, I would say the spiritual part of you that some people do or don't tap into, that'll eventually fracture and you'll pull apart.
Whose role is it in the marriage? I think we know the answer, but just to softball your question.
Yeah.
Whose role is it in the marriage to, if there's two sets of beliefs, I'm not talking about like confusing it, say the husband's an atheist and she's a Christian. If there's two sets of beliefs, ultimately someone has to lead this conversation and lead this change. Whose role is that?
It was Adam's job to tell Eve exactly what God said. And he didn't take that responsibility, and we saw what happened with the fallout.
Okay.
It's man's responsibility to communicate what is it that our values and beliefs are, and to brunt the wind when you align on that and keep pushing forward, keep shoving forward, keep, as the tip of the spear, breaking open, let's say, the barriers, the challenges that are going to batter against your family. And this particular couple, I said, regardless of whether you're an atheist or not, and regardless of whether you're a Christian, the challenge at hand is, what are you going to do with your kids?
So this is the husband atheist, is that right?
Yep.
And the wife was Catholic. Mm-hmm. She wanted to be in church. This is almost like how Laura and I got together. But the deal was, hey, if we're doing this, Brodie, you'll come to church.
Yeah.
I just loved her. So I was like, whatever, I'll come sit in church. I couldn't care less. So this is the husband he's an atheist.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like arguing over what's right for the kids. And what was your advice?
I said, if you really love your kids and you don't believe there's a God at all anyway, go sit in a building that people are talking to someone who doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Allow your kids to learn the principles that are going to be really helpful for them in their life, and lead that. Lead your kids getting principles that you actually want them to have, because in relation to you, you're just sitting in a room.
Yeah.
And your wife then gets to see you lead, and your kids get to see you lead, even though they don't know what your actual belief is in relation to, let's say, God and faith. And he was like, true. So I was able to show him, put that aside.
Yeah.
You need to align on what you're trying to do with your children. And if that means you have to spearhead it, even when you don't like it or you don't even believe in it at all, that's your responsibility.
If you know if it's the greater good. The hard part would be if he's someone who was just unwavering, he's like, I think it's detrimentally bad for us to go there.
Exactly.
But he couldn't reconcile to that, obviously.
No. And the proof's in the pudding. All you've got to look at is history, the Western world. How is it that the influence of Christ and his teaching is bad? He doesn't ridicule, people who were caught in prostitution. He, in many ways, amplifies the role of a female in culture, with Mary being the first person to see him resurrected. So there is so many things that he does. He, the outcast, the maligned, the unclean, all those sorts of things. He just welcomed them all to himself. And it was, let's say, the do-gooders that were like, why are you hanging out with scumbags? And he's like, wait, hold on a sec. These are people, right, that they all have the same value, and I want them all to feel like they're important. That's a bit of a digression. But in relation to what we were saying.
What do you see for when you're putting the boundaries up and you're trying to form this 2-person army, unbreakable, 3-chord string. You're trying to be a team together. What role, we'll talk about, say, the entertainment industry or TV or programming. What role do just outside friends or family play, like, on your marriage? I can think of one today who's a really good friend of mine, and they asked me a question. I have to say it's so coded because they'll watch it. I had a friend of mine who asked me a question, and the fact that they asked the question sowed a lot of doubt, right, into whether I thought that person wanted the best for me.
Wow.
Because of the question. But I know that they're amazing and we're tight and we're great friends, but it was just the question itself. So I can imagine that happens to families.
Yeah.
You've got people on the outside. How do you forge this wall where it's like, hey, if the mother-in-law says this, or if the sister-in-law says this, or hey, if they raise their kids that way, how do you do that? Do you sit down with your wife, spouse, and go, this is what we are. Yeah. This is our constitution, right? Yeah, this is our Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Anything outside this, it's not on.
Yeah.
How do you do that in your household?
When two people get together, you actually marry not just a person, but circumstances. The conversations you should be having before you get together, before you get married, is what's our circumstances? What's the whole picture that we are intertwining with each other, right? It's the idea of something we teach is autonomizing, which is that you leave your mother and father and cleave to the spouse that you've chosen, right? And you don't have any unresolved issues with that family, right? That's when there's a clean break. And that's obviously commanded in the Bible. It's something that is a really healthy thing. But to understand in more clarity, the word autonomization or autonomy actually means to be self-led or governed, right? Or self-governed. So when you marry circumstances and there's unresolved issues and it's not closed and there's an attachment from friends or family and things like that, and they dictate, let's say, the culture of your mind or your heart, then you're not actually living in the present with that spouse. You're living governed by another entity, governed by another power. And so in relation to your question, it's important that you sit down as a couple, regardless of if there's family members that have mental health and issues and divorce and this and that and financial this and all the problems, that you sit down and go, what do we want to adopt as something that we liked in the way that we grew up, our family of origin? What do we absolutely hate that we don't want to take any further forward and we want to cut off right now? And ultimately, as a result of that, what now does it look like for us to have circumstances that we self-lead and govern? We're the governing body over this family, so what we say goes. For example, Naomi and I worked with young people for a very long time, which is why we got into marriages, because 98% of young people said, my parents, it's their marriage, it's the problem. I think I said that to you. And we just decided, because of what we heard for so many years, that no male would ever look after our children by themselves. Right?
Good call.
That includes my dad, my wife's dad, uncles, whatever.
Blanket rule.
Can you imagine the offense?
Yeah.
Are you putting me in the same basket as some pedophile somewhere? Right? Sorry, I don't know if I could say that. Right. And I was like, hey, you had your chance at your parenting with me. Now I'm doing exactly what I want to do as a parent. It is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of everything that I've seen and how I know I can make sure that my boys are the safest that they could ever be. So I said, it's not personal. It's just the rule. Fight. I actually don't care, Dad, that you have a problem. That's your problem. Whatever's going on in your head and your heart means it's living with you. So sorry, but it's actually, you're never going to just hang out with them by yourself.
Are you fairly, just in that practical sense, if you have boundaries, rules, and someone comes in your house and let's say, let's just say they start gossiping or they start ragging on someone else, right? Are you pretty upfront with managing, hey, all respect, but wrap it up. Don't bring that in here. Like, if you've got a constitution, right, of like, this is how this family rolls, is it known, or would you be like, all right, we're not inviting them around again? Or do you just say it? You just upfront be like, hey, just stop. Like, do you control that environment?
To be honest, I think
or depending on the situation.
Yeah, I think sort of people just know Naomi and I's natural bent. Right. And so it's not something that we engage with too much. Have I gossiped before? Yes. Right. But as a whole, people don't normally bring us
into
sort
that
of information and into that sort of stuff because, to be honest, they just know that we're not interested with it.
Yeah.
And we've lived under, as you know, a lot of circumstances before in the last year and a half that would merit lots of, conversations and gossip and things like that.
Counselling you do.
Yeah. And so it's not something that we really sort of entertain too much, but that even comes to us. So I wish I could answer that in more detail, but no. But as a whole, my family particularly, they just act in a certain way when they're around us.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, the standard is this.
So you lift the standard.
We lift the standard, and they actually don't swear. They don't be rude. They don't drink. They don't do things that are around us because that's not something, and our culture's become so strong that it's like, for you to be doing that would be the most awkward thing, not the way we're doing it.
Right.
So that's how it's
really.
really
It's good. It's good advice
strong.
for people. It's great for people to just something to aspire to. I want to get into the breakdown of marriages, and I want to touch on the way to reconcile. What makes a man go outside the marriage? What's the major reason a man is unfaithful to his wife? We'll get to women as well, but why do men cheat?
I think it's two things. Definitely there's a lack of fulfillment in their relationship, for sure. What I will say is that cheating doesn't happen overnight. It's a long journey. And it's normally a internal journey with that person. So it's the lack
with that person, you mean
with the male.
with the male? Okay.
Yeah. And then so it's the struggle of fulfillment, that connection with the wife. And then also I would say the man's restless desire to be physically connected to someone.
Okay.
Yeah. And when they live a lifestyle or a culture where that in and of itself is not under restraint, as Paul put it, he beat himself into submission, which is to strict oneself to submit oneself to strict discipline. That's actually how it translates in the Greek. When that doesn't happen, then that's when, okay, this isn't happening here. I've got other options, and that seed starts to get sown, and eventually every seed that's ever sown will bear fruit.
If and also of like what just the natural instincts of men when they're not dying to their flesh, like just the drive of lust and stuff like that. So, what makes a female step outside of marriage?
The lack of husband presence, his emotional presence. It's not physical presence because a lot of them have to work 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Yes, the physical presence is important, but it's in the times where there is the physical presence that there is an investment in that emotional presence.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey, sweetheart, I actually see you. I know that you're really struggling. Is there anything I can do just to like lighten that burden, just to love you and to help you? Being in that moment with them, when those emotional bids, for example, are like, hey, I'm feeling like we're not connected, or like when you hear you're not present, or like why don't we just talk anymore? Why don't we? Those small, tiny questions are actually reaches to draw him back in.
Cries of help, yeah.
And when that doesn't get met with that receptivity, that's when she goes, I'm going to go test this out. I worked with someone once who had tested that out so many times. And it also shared stories of like, I started meeting with a friend who was a male and was telling my husband that we were having coffee and just hanging out and chatting. And then he didn't respond to the, oh, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then eventually it was like, let me show you how much of a problem me doing this actually is. Right? And got so far down the road that actually took place.
I've heard it said that women cheat emotionally and men cheat physically. Is that kind of like a good summary? As a whole, there'd be crossover, right?
And what I see like constantly is the female finding that connection with a work colleague, a male work colleague, or a male friend, or sometimes, and actually a lot of times, a friend's husband, because they're going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And so because the friend's husband is saying like, is sort of interested with the fantasical side and the imaginative side of talking to another woman, they entertain the emotion. The female's being heard, being seen, being validated.
Yeah.
The male's being, let's just say, shown attention, all that sort of stuff. And before you know it, that crossover takes place.
Yeah.
So definitely emotional, bid first to another male. If there's a receptivity first, then you've got a lot of problems.
Little and we'll come to a bit of a close, but little thing I wanted to touch on too, you might be able to add to it for some extra tips, and this is around, hey man, not putting yourself in a position to Cook yourself, right? Billy Graham, famous evangelist, he had a couple of blanket rules. Don't put yourself in a room by yourself with a female who's not your wife. Don't be in a car with a female who's not your wife. Just basic things like this. One, be above reproach. Don't put yourself in a position where you can start to emotionally connect and have a relationship that it might start normal, even in work relationships we see a lot, like when people have like a work wife or a work husband, they say it in a funny, laughing way, but it's a dangerous. Especially the mind of a man. He's going places that she mightn't, but he's going there. And so I've always said, and I know I do it too, even when I've had people working in this building, if it was just me here and maybe someone was renting an office upstairs who was a female, if it's just us two here, I'm out. Like, I'm not here. Just a blanket,
Awesome.
like, don't put myself in a position where, not that I don't trust myself, but I don't want someone to rock up and be like, oh, Brodie's just in here with, like, you just don't do those things. So a couple of blanket rules for men, which specifically for men. Yeah, my first two is don't put yourself in an isolated environment with a female who's not your wife. One, so people can't say something, and two, so you don't go on that journey and grow it. Any other couple of tips for men? Yeah,
definitely abstain from the appearance of evil. What I see regularly in the conversations that I'm having with couples where there's a trust breakdown is just transparency. Like, what are you doing? Where are you?
Yeah.
Like, why did you take an extra hour? You might have just got caught in traffic. You might have just thought, I'm just going to sit down and have a Hungry Jack's burger and just chill for a second. Whatever, but communicate it. Like, actually bring the relational transparency there, because our wives will start asking questions. And the moment that question comes, you're going to get pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to be like, are you kidding me?
Because you feel like you're
questioning my integrity, my love, my commitment to this family. So I would just say that. Be really accountable. Be so transparent. You can have like apps and things like that can track you, whatever. Do whatever, but have that transparency.
Yeah. So we know that obviously there's and just to highlight, we're going to go into this more in another video I'm doing, guys, around the external attacks that I really see against the family. But I wanted to, against the family unit and marriage, but I wanted to have this conversation with someone who is always, this is what he does, like 5, 6, 7 nights and days a week. He's dealing with the result of the attacks.
Yeah.
And so, firstly, thanks for being here. And just to summarize, man, I think men, you can always do better. I think that's the call on men, is like, hey, as much as you might think your wife needs to be better and change, you're built to change. And I'm stealing that line from my pastor, because as much as it challenges me a lot, it is the call of a man. Hey, man, like, grow up, lead, protect, provide, and sacrifice.
Yeah.
I've done it so many times where I'm like, well, I've earned X, Y, Z. And it's like, if it's at the detriment of your wife's relationship with yourself, kill it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and this is the call, your career comes second to your role as a father and as a husband. And wives, I think, speaking from a man's side, I totally agree. Men just want to feel like they are noticed or just appreciated is actually the spot. It's that we don't need, like, I am a touch person. I love a hug from my wife. So I am physical touch. I like to be hugged.
Yep.
But if just that, hey, by the way, thanks so much for that, does so much. We're simple creatures, men.
Yeah.
We want to get as close as possible to you as often as we can.
Touched as many times as we can.
That's it. And we just want to be valued. And the same for women. From what you said, it sounds like, hey, ask your wife, what can I do for you? How can I pray for you? And ultimately, like we said, your marriage can always be better, right? It can always be better. You might have a 99% perfect marriage. It can be better. Always work on it. So, man, thank you.
I've never seen a marriage that couldn't be restored when both of them said, I'm all in.
Hey, if you enjoyed that conversation, thanks so much for watching. If you're a little bit convicted or challenged, that's a good thing. It means there's something inside you that says, I want to be a better husband or a better wife. Maybe tag someone. I wouldn't suggest tagging your wife in this video, or I wouldn't suggest tagging your husband, but maybe sit down and watch it together, or say you got something out of it. I'm going to put all the details to the marriage code that Jason does with his wife. There's a link in the bio, and you'll be able to click on there and chat to them. They talk to people all over the world. So if you are into improving your marriage, go ahead and click on that link. Until the next one, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.